Hi, welcome to this introduction, and please don't just skip past it. Late last year, I read this really provocative and exciting book called Hands of Doom, The Apocalyptic Imagination of Black Sabbath, and the author's name is Jack Holloway. And at the time, it just really impressed me, the scholarship, the depth, and I couldn't wait to get him into an interview. So we did an interview back in, I think it was late January, and we had a bunch of technical issues. And to be totally honest, I wasn't good enough to overcome the technical issues. Just some audio things and a bunch of glitches with the internet, and the software wasn't as performing as well as it is now. So I'm glad to say that I have edited the piece. It's not perfect, but it's a big improvement. My big regret with this interview is it's on this small channel. I truly believe that what Jack Holloway writes, what he has to say, and the content of this book, this should be handled by a site with, I don't know, 100,000, 200,000 subs. Well, it's the most important book about Black Sabbath I've ever read. It's probably the best book on Black Sabbath I've ever read. Apologies to Martin Popoff. He's been great. There are hundreds of books on Black Sabbath. None quite like this one, so I hope you enjoy remastered, restored my interview with Jack Holloway.
Welcome to Clean and Sober Stoner.
Okay. Good. I set it for low resolution. You know, I thought everybody would have 4K cameras and yeah.
That's funny.
How you doing,
I'm
man?
doing good. How are you?
I've had a rough
Oh yeah.
day. It's like been just a lot going on.
Okay. Well, if as long as we're being honest, it's been a challenging day for me too.
Okay, that's why we're here. We're not. Your book doesn't pull punches. Normally, I send an outline, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought, yeah, I can send you an outline. I'm not going to use it. It just won't happen that way.
That's
Um,
all right. I can go.
do you know my Do you know my background?
No, I don't. Well, I did a little bit. I did a
Masters.
little bit of reading. I'm not totally ignorant, but I'd love to hear.
So we, what could make this interesting? Before I dropped out of college due to drugs, I was a philosophy major. Currently, I've got a master's in psychology of addiction, and I'm a actual like no kidding
Oh
addiction
wow.
counselor. So, and I know a lot of your social justice things that you're working on overlap a little bit. I'm a harm reductionist, getting ready to ramp out of counseling. So I was thinking, wow, this conversation could go a whole bunch of different
Yeah.
places.
Really.
So, but the first thing I need you to do, if you don't mind, is look in the camera, smile, and say, "Welcome to Clean and Sober Stoner."
Welcome to Clean and Sober Stoner.
I love the solo performances. You know, sometimes I get this a cappella vibe, and it'll be chordal or it'll be polyrhythmic because we'll be out of time. But the solo, there's nothing like it. It's nerve wracking though because you're on the spot. You had to carry the whole thing. Jack, I have been looking forward to talking to you for a long time, and I'm gonna get beeped a little bit. I apologize for that. Your book was fascinating, and your book is not at all what I
Mm.
expected. I was expecting a Martin Popoff. No disrespect, I love Martin Popoff. He's the dude. I was expecting a cultural kind of analysis of Black Sabbath, how it fits into the culture, and so I started reading this book, and uh, it's written at a very high level. I don't want to scare the audience away, but this is written like it's a academic text. You have the footnotes, you have an argument, and then you're using information to back it up. Gotta hand it to you, dude.
Oh, thank you. And actually, yeah, I was just talking about this because I'm working on a new book now, and I'm taking a very different approach. I'm taking more of the Martin Popoff approach with the new book. Um, but yeah, for this one, I really didn't want to write another like intro to Black Sabbath kind of book, because there's just so many out there. It's like there's like dozens of books about Black Sabbath at this point. And so I didn't want to just write. I thought what would be more interesting for me as a theologian would be to write my own reception of Black Sabbath. And so that meant kind of, and I said reading it as a sacred text. And the thing about sacred texts is we don't read them just learning about them, like the word is exegesis, like drawing meaning out of the text. We don't just do that, we also do eisegesis, which is reading things into the text. Like that's how people read the Bible. They don't just they don't just learn about the Bible, they also like add their own stuff into the Bible or whatever. So one thing people have taken issue with the book is how what's the word I'm looking for? Um Editorial it is. It's like opinionated. I'm very opinionated, and I have a lot of my own stuff that I bring to it. Um so yeah, I it's not a Martin Popoff book.
Yeah, yeah. So what's awesome about this is, I run a site called Clean and Sober Stoner. I'm an addiction counselor, so I offend the people in recovery. I offend the stoners. You're a theologian who's finding biblical meaning in Black Sabbath. And if I remember right, you incorporate black metal
Yeah,
into some of your
yeah. Well,
services.
this next service is a virtual service, and the last couple Despair Sanctuary. It's called Despair Sanctuary, and the last couple Despair Sanctuaries were drone metal, and it was in person, and we filled. I mean, we blasted this playlist of drone metal into the sanctuary, into this old church. Um, The next one is virtual, and it's a little more low key, and it's black metal. So instead of blasting it in a church, I'll just be blasting it into people's ears.
Oh man, I'd love it both ways. So we have a unique opportunity to offend everyone,
Yeah,
right? We can offend the agnostics and the atheists, metalheads. We can offend the religious folks and all this. So I figured this was a natural
yeah,
fit. If I understand your story correctly, you discovered Black Sabbath while in seminary.
yeah. I did. Well, I mean, I had heard things before, but when I really became a fan when I was in seminary, and actually, I see you've got Born Again behind you. Can
Yeah,
you grab that copy? There's something I want to point out on the back.
it is an original. This is what was actually released.
Oh, nice. Now on the back, there's a logo. Yeah, that logo up there is very industry interesting, because there's a cross inside of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
meant, and this is all over Black Sabbath. It's meant to be sort of satanic in a way, but then you with Black Sabbath you never just have the inverted cross, you also have the right side up cross. um so that's kind of how I work too. I have the inverted cross and the right side up cross in just about everything I do. So yeah, I offend everybody.
Well, I mean, if you read some of the portions of the Bible, they're like doom metal lyrics. I mean, some of the topics turning a whole civilization into salt, the whole ark thing. I mean, come on, it doesn't get more metal than
Yeah,
that. You bring up the interesting dichotomy of Black Sabbath and hashtag I get to use big words. Thank you. But like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath is one of the best examples, one of the archetypal heavy metal covers, is 666, and you have, but then when you flip it on the other side, it's repass. It's floating into heaven, is being anointed
Yeah.
by angels. You get both sides of it, and I've never understood the controversy because Satan's kind of in the Bible, and hell's kind of in the Bible, and evil things are in there, and we don't freak out and ban the Bible. Do you find a similar thing?
Yeah, and in fact, so when I really became a fan of Black Sabbath, I was studying apocalyptic literature in the Bible. And I was on my way to class, on my way to a Job class one day, and I was listening to War Pigs, and I was astounded by the resonance that that song has, the biblical resonance that it has, and of course, like all of that imagery comes from the Bible. Like he's Geezer Butler, when he wrote War Pigs, was specifically drawing on his Catholic background. But uh, what's interesting there is in the book of Job, Satan is like working for God. Like Satan is not like God's arch nemesis. He comes into God's court and God hires him to investigate Job essentially. So yeah, even it's like even in the Bible, the satanic, like what is satanic and who is Satan is not quite resolved. You know, there's like lots of
Mm-hmm.
different sort of things going on there.
My piddly understanding is a lot of our conception doesn't necessarily come from the Bible. It comes from ancient Kabbalah, ancient pre-Christian texts. There's some Coptic texts and Gnostic texts, none of which are in the Bible.
True, and then of course, like it just once you get to the Roman Catholic Church, and especially the medieval era, a lot of the Satan stuff gets fleshed out there. I mean, a lot of our ideas about Satan go back to Paradise Lost, you know or Dante's
Yeah.
Inferno. They don't go back to the Bible per se.
So within your world, like you're in seminary, you're going to this class on Job. When did you, at any point in your education, did you start bringing the um, religious aspects of blacks? Did you debate in class? Did you bring it up? Did you write about it?
I wasn't writing about it then, but I was talking about it. And it was actually in talking about it that I ended up talking about it to the series editor, Christian Sharon, of the series that the book is a part of, the popular um, engagements with theology and music, or something like that. It's a theology and music series that Whippenstock, or that Cascade through the publisher Whippenstock. Um, I was talking to the series editor, and I was just sort of, uh, nerding out about it because I had become a pretty avid fan by that point, and I was, at that point I had started listening to Master of Reality, um, and Lord of this World is such an apocalyptic text. It's so I was really starting to appreciate the depth to which, now I understand it was Geezer Butler. Then I just was listening to the music, but the
Mm-hmm.
depth to which Geezer was really a theologian. Um, he's not as much a theologian now because he's a little more sure of like what he does and doesn't believe. Um, but at the time, he was really wrestling. I mean, not wrestling might be a little dramatic, but he was exploring the dichotomy between God and Satan. And so in War Pigs, God and Satan end up together, and that I found very interesting. So when I wrote the book, I kind of wanted to do the same thing, but with myself and Black Sabbath, where I'm like exploring not just trying to figure out the all the intentions of behind the lyrics or like the cultural impact, but also what I think about it and what I would say reflecting on the different material, the satanic material, the theological material, and Black Sabbath's lyrics.
This is fascinating stuff. Now, how has your side of the fence, being a theologian, how do your fellow ministers, reverends, people in your community, have they been receptive to your work on this?
My the more conservative elements, not so much. I think that those who do those like in my family and more broadly who have heard of it, they don't really want anything to do with it. They kind of keep it, um, they kind of want me to keep it to myself. But here in New York, I know a lot of like progressive Christians who are more open-minded and more modern, and they are very receptive to it. And especially the Despair Sanctuary stuff is very interesting to them. But I mean, anything. I think there are different kinds of Christians. There are some Christians for whom anything that has to do with the world, in scare quotes, anything secular, anything that isn't explicitly worshiping Jesus is suspect. But then there are a lot of Christians for whom they want to make those connections. They want to see God everywhere, and that's one thing I say in my book is like I want to see God no matter where I am, no matter what I'm listening to. So that for them, they do appreciate it, and some of them I've made some Black Sabbath fans from this book. Um, it's
I
be a
can
good thing.
imagine. And have you been able to convert or supply comfort and aid to Black Sabbath fans who were kind of lost, and now through your ministry they're able to find, get back on track or improve their lives?
I'm not so sure about the latter part of it, but definitely through Despair Sanctuary, I've provided an opportunity for people to uh, for people who don't go to church to have a kind of church service that is for them. So a lot of the people who came to Despair Sanctuary were pretty incredulous that something like that existed, that they would be playing. I mean, we were playing Sun and Pharmacon and Earth in church and blasting it, to that extreme volumes, so I mean, we played Primitive Man. I don't know if you've heard Primitive Man.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So we played Primitive Man, that, and that was even I was like incredulous that it was being played in church when it was playing. Um so I think not only were there people there who would otherwise have no other reason to go to church, but it was a space specifically to deal with negative emotions. It was like, come and you can feel bad. You don't have to feel good, and we'll just hold on to it. And I think the image that I like is that the sound waves, uh, they go through the space and they take all of that negative energy and they cast it into the air, and then it's gone, and then you leave and you're fine. And we did have people say, I'm glad I came. It feels good. So, um, yeah. So that's kind of the idea. Is like I want to take what ministers to people about metal and provide like kind of public opportunities for that.
Keeping in mind the different rabbit holes I can go down, how long have you had has Despair Sanctuary been a thing? It sounds like it's kind of recent.
Yeah. I The first one was last October. So yeah, it was last October we did one, and then we did a second one in December, and then the third one is virtual and is this month on Monday.
And so when you say you're doing black metal, I mean, are you doing mayhem and burzum, or are you being a little bit more selective on the black metal that you're presenting?
I would never play Burzum in church. um, but
I lost you.
yeah, we're gonna be playing. Okay, I don't want to reveal the playlist ahead of time, but
No, no.
I won't play Mayhem, or and definitely not Burzum, just because I'm not about what he's about. But there will be genuine black metal, uh, and again, I think it's really just for the experience of listening to it, like the experience of listening. I've had times where I'm so depressed, and the only music that really understands me in my depression is black metal. It's like it can just get to those really dark feelings, and that's where I want to be able to get to. I want to be able to get to those feelings that people only really feel alone, and I'd like to get to them when, like, in a group place, so that we can share them, and by sharing them, kind of recycle them, or digest them. I'd like to be able to do that, to digest those negative emotions together.
Are you familiar with an outfit called Black Yoga?
Yes, yeah,
You know Black Yoga?
yeah.
I wish they would do their stuff online. I actually bought their soundtrack. Like they stopped doing pre-recorded stuff. They put a band together. I actually have that somewhere in my
um,
system. This sounds very similar to that, and I'm absolutely totally digging it. And I hope everybody else is as well, because it doesn't sound like you're trying to convert. You're not being preachy. You're just trying to go kind of like, yeah, life sucks. Life is suffering. We can suffer together and we can start healing. Am I even close to being on
yeah,
target?
absolutely, you're absolutely right. It's not Christian. Like, it's not explicit. It's not confession. It's not Christian, because, like, I think it's something Jesus would do, but it's not it's not
Yeah.
Christian in the sense that you have to be a Christian to do it, or that the purpose is for your Christian spiritual development or whatever. It's exactly what you said. It's like, life is suffering, and let's suffer together and heal.
In Hand of Doom, what probably my favorite part of the book, where I actually got to start to really relate, coming from the addiction counselor background, was you referenced the cultural changes of the '60s, and that we're kind of going through a similar thing now, but it's more cynical.
Yeah,
Do you recall call that section?
yeah.
So I kind of wanted to. Do you think that the heavy music, the extreme music, is a way to cut through that cynicism? Because metal, Primitive Man. I love that you mentioned them. I mean, they're just telling you exactly how it is in that moment, almost without judgment. It's like they're taking a picture and going, "Hey, this is what it is." I find that cleansing. Is so culturally, do you think that metal can be an antidote to the cynicism that we have?
Yeah, and I was actually just writing about this. I I think the cynicism that is in metal is so relentless that it ends up being positive. Um, and I think that's the secret to it. I think the the cynicism that we didn't get in the '60s, there was too much there was too much idealism. There was too much, like, because things should be a certain way, then they must become that way, or like, we're like just kind of automatically on the road to progress. I think there was that kind of idealism, and I think what we're realizing now is, oh no, just because something should be a certain way doesn't mean we're automatically progressing towards that. I think we're realizing it can just stay bad forever if we let it. And so I think metal bands like Primitive Man's a good example. The ones that really show you just how evil and corrupt the world is. I think there's something in that that is cathartic and that frees you up for a different kind of consciousness, for a kind of consciousness that is not going to accept the way things are, which I think could only be positive. I think if we give up on believing in the way things are and in the way things are going, I think then we start to imagine other ways of being and ways that things can be differently. And so yeah, I think, and you get this with punk too. I think Discharge is a great example. Or the anarcho punk bands that are like real relentless, like they'll show you how bad the world is, and only by being that honest can you be positive and say like it doesn't have to be this way. Like in Discharge you have like these very dark depictions of reality. But then you also have songs that are like fight back, protest and survive. Like these these affirmations that like things can be different if we change them, but we have to give up on the things as they are now.
You mentioned earlier that there are some aspects, some Christian points of view that are very divorced from the world. If it's worldly, they want to avoid it. I kind of read into what you're saying that that attitude is what is perpetuating the the suffering we have, the poverty, the situation. Am I reading too much into it, or am I on track there?
Yeah, I mean that's certainly the fact that so many Christians and so many powerful Christians. I mean, we're talking about a lot of like Republicans have a lot of power in the world, and Republican Christians have a lot of power in the world, and the Christianity that it's founded on is very world denying. It's a rejection of the world, and it's a retreat into private space and into individual self focused space. So yeah, I mean all you have to do is you don't have to look any further than the climate issue, the issue of global warming, to see that far too many Christians are neglecting the care for this world because they're too focused on heaven, on going to heaven and what it means, and like what we need to do and to get right with God so that we can ensure our place in the next life. Primitive Man's got that song "This Life." You need to focus on this life.
Man, I'm loving the primitive man references. I've never I've never understood from a biblical perspective where that idea comes from. I've always understood Jesus, and I'm far from an expert, but I always Jesus was always in the world. You know, he was laying his hands on lepers. He was washing their feet. He the whole Sermon on the Mount thing. This is too big a question, but maybe you can solve this for everybody. Where in the world does this idea come from that the world is evil and should be shunned? Because I've never seen that in the New Testament.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are. I mean, yeah, it's a huge question. There are parts.
Yeah, not to throw you on the spot, Jake. I mean,
There are parts of the New Testament that are certainly like world denying, and of course, like the Gnostic Christianity, um, propped up within like the first century after Jesus's death. So there was a movement that was kind of retreating, And there is something in Jesus's message too, where the world can be in any state, and Jesus is not so much saying we have to change the world in order to see the kingdom of God. He's saying that there's something happening in here that is more decisive. So it does kind of come from Jesus, but uh, the way that he practiced it is where it gets um, alien from Jesus, because for Jesus it was always you have a change in here so that you can serve the people around you and you can serve the world around you. It's not so that you can go to heaven. Like that idea comes later. He Jesus believed in heaven, but he believed in heaven coming to earth. Uh, and I think that is what got lost, especially in Roman Christianity, because eventually Christianity becomes the religion of Rome. And when it becomes the religion of Rome, that's when it becomes all about uh, your personal salvation from this world in the next life. Because there's nothing that serves the empire more than you believing that the world is never going to change. Uh, all
Hmm.
I can do is worry about myself and being a good, obedient person now, so that I can get a good job in the next life. um, last thing,
I'm so tempted. I'm so tempted to throw Calvinism into the discussion now, but I'll do that as one of those short YouTube things. Obviously, I'm going to edit that part out. Hopefully, I'm smart enough to edit that out. You are making such good points, and we didn't talk beforehand. I didn't give you, the questions. But what you just said, I think, what I got from your book, this is what Geezer was doing. He was kind of rejecting the Romanization of Christianity, kind of rejecting the, oh, it's all about me. And then that's how we get songs like Into the Void. That's how we get songs like Under the Sun. That's how we get songs like After Forever.
yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, and that was what was so impressive to me about the Black Sabbath lyrics, was that they were not just using biblical imagery, and they were not just recycling like certain theological elements, but that they were actually innovating new theological ideas. And so that was really what I was trying to tap into in the book, and do also myself, is because there's only so much theology that you can get from a song. A lot of whatever, when you're talking about the ideas in a song, it's impossible to do that without innovating, without you know using your own words and using your own ideas. So that's really what I wanted to do. Is I wanted to do with Black Sabbath's lyrics what Geezer was doing when he was writing them. When he was yeah, because that's what really drew me into it.
That's awesome. And so everybody knows, this is the book we're talking about. This is available everywhere, right?
Yeah,
Amazon?
yeah,
You can get it anywhere. Small publisher, but you can get it. I really highly recommend it. Um, but you did say that you're moving on. That you're now going to write a. Is it a follow? Is it a companion book? Is it a more secular look at it? Like, what are we doing here?
so the book I'm working on now is actually about discharge, and
Okay.
uh and I'm this one, I actually it'll still be, it'll still have chapters that are about um discharge and religion, kind of like loosely speaking. I've got a chapter on lament, especially, and kind of what we were talking about earlier about um like music providing a space where you can feel your negative emotions. um I've been doing that a lot with Discharge, and that's what kind of made me want to write the book. But there also hasn't been a book written about the band Discharge, and they're a great anti-war uh, group, and they have a lot of meaningful things to say. And so I'm actually going to set about writing the first kind of Discharge book. So a lot of it will be more the actual story of the band, and their fanzines, and their album artwork, and like it'll be more trivia stuff like that. It'll be more the Martin Popoff kind of book. Um,
Which again is great. Um, any chance we can get first dibs here at Clean and Sober when you do that, sucker? I'd love to talk about it just before release.
oh yeah, and this is actually the first time I'm talking about it publicly. So this,
Woo! I got a
yeah,
scoop.
you got the scoop.
Okay, one last question. So you start out with Black Sabbath and Seminary. You've mentioned Primitive Man. You've mentioned Sun. Who else? Who else do you bring into your? Who else makes up your universe of heavy music that does the things that you're looking for it to do? Who else are you into, man?
That's a good question. I mean, I want to write about Ozzy, just but Sleep for sure. Um, I'm trying to think of the bands that I mentioned Discharge. I'm like looking up at my record collection. Oh, Sacrilege is another great one. Um,
Okay.
yeah, Within the Prophecy. It's a great record. Oh, yeah. This is the last one I'll say. Uh, Pagan Altar,
I was just, you read my
Judgment.
mind. That is exactly the album I was thinking.
Yeah, this album, and I mention it in the book. It's more explicitly Satanist, but there's theology in there that is doing more than just Satanism. Um,
Well, you can't be Satanist without being Christian, can you?
yeah, you certainly can't be Satanist without being theological. Um, and I would say that applies to black metal too. I think there's kind of a um, the lady doth protest too much when it comes to um, black metal and the sort of satanic purity of black metal or whatever. I think that purity is a little um, over uh, oversold. Uh,
Okay, that's my last check mark. We have now offended, I think, just about every group. We've got the Catholics, we've got the Republicans, the Conservatives, the Baptists, the Calvinists. I expect to have the Calvinists are going to jump all over me. Is there anything we didn't talk about that because I know this was on your mind for at least a week? It's like, wow, I'm going to be on Clean and Sober Stoner. 14 people are going to see me. I can't wait to talk about. I hope he asks me this. Any of that come up?
oh man, I mostly like the challenge of going in without knowing anything without. Um, I will say it is. I like the clean and sober stoner concept. I remember reading something that you had written about it, and yeah, I mean because so much of this world is intoxicants. Like I tried cocaine specifically as research for the book. I felt I felt it would be there would be something flawed in or something a little untried about me never having tried cocaine while writing about especially when I was writing about Wheels of Confusion. I was like, I'm writing about this album that they dedicated to cocaine. So I feel like I should try it. Um, but the music itself is so powerful. Jimi
Mm-hmm.
Hendrix used to say this toward the end of his life. He used to say that the music is so powerful. It's more powerful than a drug. It's like,
Yeah.
and definitely Despair Sanctuary. When I actually started a band called Chthonic Rites, specifically for the purpose of Despair Sanctuary. And when we played, we had um, we had two stacks, a bass stack and a guitar stack. And my friend Tommy, who was helping with sound, he was leaning up against the wall, and he said when I was playing bass, he could feel it in his teeth, reverberating off of this old stone church wall. And I think that like that is so powerful, that like you don't need cocaine, you don't need weed, you don't
Oh
need
no.
alcohol. The music itself is so powerful. So I like the emphasis, on appreciating this like stoner doom metal, without drugs, without intoxicants.
Half of this stuff would have freaked me out if I was high when I heard it. I mean, good God, there's some trippy stuff out there. Okay, I do work for Bass Gear magazine, so did you play bass?
Yeah, I do play
With
bass. Yeah.
okay, what kind of stack were you running? I immediately thought like a Mesa Boogie something, or was it a 300
Oh, you
watt
know
two
what? I
volt?
don't even know it's not my equipment. But
Okay, fair
I'll
enough.
I'll I'll get it and send it to you. But I'm using a
So,
Fender Jazz.
ooh, not a P bass?
Yeah, no,
Getting all fancy.
yeah, it's a hand me down.
Are you so Chthonic rights,
Yeah.
right? Any plans on recording any material out there? Anything I can cover? Come on, man.
Yeah, so we have recordings. We will be releasing them in the near future, and then we're also currently working on a couple of studio things. So, yeah.
Okay, if you're up for this, what I like to do, I haven't done it in a while, is I schedule the interview and the review, and I listen to the song for the first time with the artist on the other end of this thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
So I'm dead serious, man. I've been looking forward to this like I can't tell you how much. Bad day, but this made it worth it. And I gotta be honest, I just want an excuse to talk to you again. So we have Discharge, the book on Discharge. We have Chthonic Rights coming to cleanandsoberstoner.com soon. This has been everything I could ask for, Jack.
Awesome. It's been nice meeting you, Scott. Thank you so much.